VBS Mutual Bank first came into the spotlight when it provided former President Jacob Zuma with the 7.5 million rands bond that he had to pay back for the security upgrades at his Nkandla homestead. Shortly thereafter, news broke that the same bank was involved in defrauding pensioners, burial societies, stokvels and municipalities in Limpopo, the West Rand and the Northwest. Now this fraud was orchestrated by the bank's officials, corrupt politicians and shady business people who treated the bank as their own personal piggy bank over a period of 5 years. What's even more disheartening is that a black-owned bank established by and for rural black communities was destroyed by black individuals, showing no regard for the devastation they left behind. VBS was established in 1982 by a group of predominantly rural people from Venda. They came together to collaborate financially to uplift themselves as a community. One of the biggest challenges at the time was that banks were very reluctant to give rural black people loans or bonds, and rural properties were not really considered valuable financial assets like urban homes. Now, financial institutions were not really interested in helping these people. They were primarily focused on extracting money from these communities. The Venda Building Society was formed mainly for saving money to build houses and address other needs, as well as to meet their unique banking requirements. Over time, the society grew as more people joined. Some of these individuals were professionals of the time, like teachers or nurses who used their pension funds, while others were self-employed as small-scale farmers, traders or operated informal businesses. The society worked better for the people compared to traditional banking. The entire system was based on trust. You see, these were principled, ethical individuals who were never driven by greed and acted in each other's best interest. Over time, the society proved to be a successful model, doing more than just saving money together. The system helped people by allowing them to lend money to each other from a shared pool. Now, more informal burial societies and stokvels and other smaller business owners, they joined. Now, as the numbers grew, the members realized that they could start their own mutual bank because they were already operating like one. A mutual bank is a cooperative financial institution owned by its depositors or customers, including mutual organizations, mutual savings banks, and cooperative banking. Unlike traditional banks, which prioritize shareholder profits, mutual banks focus on serving their members' interests. The society came together for the creation of this bank. They pooled their resources, contributing everything they had, from pensions to life savings. They also partnered with the Bantustan government of Venda, which held people's pensions, to start this mutual bank. And the entity that held people's pensions later turned into the PIC. Now, ownership was split between the pension fund and the members. You see, this was a groundbreaking achievement for the people of Venda. As the small bank grew, there were those who sought to take advantage of it. Quietly, they devised a plan to take over the bank in what would become the biggest bank heist in South Africa. Now, in 2013, the kingpin behind the looting, Matodzi, approached the Venda king Tonimpepu Ramabula through his advisor Makavu to form a structure to acquire a stake in VBS. This is how the trouble began. As soon as Matodzi got his foot in the bank, he set his plan in motion. Matodzi was running a company called Vele Investments, which was later used to take over VBS Bank by purchasing majority of its shares. Now, when Matodzi left Vele Investments to run VBS, he appointed a man named Manda Manyate to run Vele Investments. However, their relationship eventually soured, leading to Manyate's suspension. Feeling disgruntled, Manyate revealed details of how Vele acquired VBS. Manyate accused Vele Investment of fraudulently acquiring its 53% shares in VBS Mutual Bank. He stated that he had not seen any evidence of Vele Investments paying for the 53% stake it holds in VBS. He concluded that Vele had fraudulently acquired the shares without any payment. Now, these are his accusations. Now keep in mind, the initial shareholders of VBS were ordinary villagers without any professional expertise in finance or banking. Now this made them very vulnerable to be deceived and losing their position, especially when they were dealing with knowledgeable individuals like Manyate and his team. Now when Vele acquired the VBS shares, they became the majority shareholders of that bank. Ramafonga was an executive director and chief executive officer of VBS. He's a chartered accountant and a banker by profession. Now Ramafonga became a non-executive director of VBS in 2013. So Matodzi and Ramafonga had known each other since university, both being qualified chartered accountants, with Matodzi having completed his articles at KPMG, who helped them later on to cook the books. Now Ramafonga was designated Chief Executive Officer of VBS in December 2013 and officially appointed to the position on a 5-year contract starting from the 1st of August in 2014. On the 24th of July 2015, Matodzi became the chairman of the board of directors of VBS. In his first chairman's report dated 22 June 2016, Matodzi stated that he had been involved in the bank strategy and turnaround since the acquisition of the majority stake in 2013. Now Matodzi became the central force in the conduct of VBS business. Matodzi and Ramafonga embarked on a strategy that they claimed that it was aimed at turning VBS into a profitable enterprise. The turnaround strategy had two main components. First, VBS abandoned its traditional reliance on small retail deposits or depositors and shifted its focus to securing large short-term deposits from municipalities. You see, Matodzi conspired with corrupt municipal officials and politicians, including the mayor of Vembe, to get municipalities to deposit their funds in VBS. However, by law, municipalities are not allowed to deposit money into mutual banks. They can only use commercial banks due to the fact that they have larger reserves and their ability to provide guarantees in case something goes wrong. Now, in return, Matodzi ensured that those who cooperated were rewarded with commissions. Now, as a result, VBS began receiving large deposits more frequently and thanks to the municipalities. Every deposit made by a municipality into VBS arose as a result of a so-called commission or consultation fee paid to solicit the deposit. Now, in some cases, there were agreements in place that set the commission at 2% of the sum deposited over the tenure of the deposit. Initially, there was no direct contact between VBS and the municipalities, and all payments were made by VBS to the so-called consultants, who would then attend to the necessary payments to municipal officials out of the commissions that they had received. Certain municipal officials complained that they only received a can of coke for their efforts, while the consultants received over R1 million. Now, the consultants in most cases would be individuals who would have political ties with powerful individuals within the ANC structures within that particular region. The kingpin in the so-called commissions agent scheme was the provincial treasurer of the ANC in Limpopo, Denim Caesar. Now, Kabelo Matsepe, a politically connected fixer, became a very well-remunerated middleman and acted as a gatekeeper between VBS and the municipalities. With all these municipalities being tricked into depositing money into VBS, there's one person who saw through the scam very early, Mariette Venter, a chartered accountant and the acting CFO of the Capricorn District Municipality, who stood up to immense pressure and managed to force VBS to return the municipality's funds to it. She was later unfairly suspended from her post as a result and labeled as a racist who did not want to invest public monies into a black bank. VBS's ambitions at a certain point went beyond the solicitations of deposits from municipalities, and the bank set its sights on the large amounts under the control of parastatals and the state-owned enterprises. Now, this led to various attempts to obtain enormous deposits from Brasa. Yvonne Page, the former acting group CFO of PRASA, who told investigators about the attempts that were made by VBS to solicit a deposit of 1 billion rands from PRASA. Now, her intervention blocked very senior officials at PRASA from depositing that sum into what she described as a Ponzi scheme. The cost to VBS obtaining that deposit would have been far greater than the amount of interest they would have accrued from that deposit, as the commissions were somewhere between 30 million rands and 40 million rands that they would have had to pay to highly placed PRASA officials in order to obtain that deposit. What was reported was that the successful facilitation of this deposit from PRASA was dependent upon Nkosazana Zuma succeeding to the presidency of the ANC at the party's elective conference held in December of 2017. But we know what happened there. Yvonne Page asked for the VBS's financials, which they were not forthcoming with. Then she went onto the internet and printed their annual financial statements. Now, the financials of March 2016 showed that their total assets were only 1 billion rands. And this is what she said: how can a normal person invest 1 billion rands into a company whose total assets is 1 billion rands? Yep, that doesn't make sense at all. Another problem was that the interest rate offered by VBS was 9.5%, which was a red flag. It suggested that VBS was nothing more than a Ponzi scheme, as the major banks would not have offered a similar rate. Now, this raised suspicions amongst authorities, who began to realize that something was amiss at VBS. Now, it's also important to note that VBS CFO Truter, along with auditors from KPMG, were falsifying books and submitting fraudulent statements to the Reserve Bank every month to conceal the deteriorating situation within the bank. The significant amounts were lent to various parties by VBS, particularly for contract financing and overdraft facilities without proper credit approval. Now, contract financing became a primary avenue for looting funds from VBS. Now, in these cases, so-called entrepreneurs or tenderpreneurs who were related to Matodzi were given money to fulfill newly acquired contracts, but in reality, I don't think there were any contracts. They were just chowing the money. Now, astonishingly, the contract finance book, which eventually became VBS's single largest asset, was not recorded in the bank's operating system, which is called the EMID, but instead it was tracked on an easily manipulated Excel spreadsheet. There are many examples of vehicle finance facilities and mortgage bond facilities granted to associates and parties related to Vele Investments and Matodzi, where few, if any, monthly installments were honored. Now, there are also large overdraft facilities where no amounts were ever paid into the accounts, and the facility limits simply increased to permit the escalating looting that was happening. On the 19th of March 2017, Matodzi met with Popi Mukodobwane, who was the treasurer of VBS, and Truter, who was the CFO, at the clubhouse at the Eagles Canyon estate where he resided. Now, at the time, he gave instructions to Mukodobwane and Truter to carry out an audacious scheme to further impoverish VBS for the benefit of Matodzi and the large number of his associates. The net effect of the instructions contained in the Eagles Canyon spreadsheet. Number one was to wipe out overdrawn balances of 34 accounts held at VBS in the names of Matodzi and various of his associates and companies in which he held an interest in, and also by crediting these accounts with fictitious amounts totaling 250 million rands. Number two, to create, and in most cases, increase overdraft facilities of these 34 accounts. Number three, to create fictitious investments in the name of Matodzi and 5 other parties associated with and related to him, totaling 200 million rands. And number 4, to cause shares in VBS to be issued to Matodzi and various related parties to the value of 190 million rands. Now, the majority of people implicated in this case or in the looting are ANC members and VBS officials. Now, the EFF was dragged into this mess because Matodzi claims that after the EFF discovered the shenanigans at VBS after they gave Zuma the bond, he feared that they would use their political muscle to bring down VBS. Now, consequently, he gave them a donation totaling 16 million rands. However, Matodzi, through VBS and Vele Investments, he gave larger amounts to others, as the total looted amount was close to 2 billion rands. The ANC received money, the mayor received money, politicians received money, Zuma received money, almost all officials at VBS received money. You see, this was like the Last Supper, and the EFF only got the crumbs. They were never involved in orchestrating this plan.